Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another episode of the Iron Life Podcast. I am your host, Chris Tutela, and here we are, the end of 2020. What a year. What a year it's been. And as we are getting ready to kick off 2021, I couldn't help but really just reflect and think about this past year and everything that all of us have been through. It's really been one of the most interesting years of my life, and I think that everybody could agree to that. There's been so many different things, and I think really, although it's been really challenging with all these different challenges, I believe that there's always really valuable lessons to take from each one of these things that has happened this year. And there's been a lot. And, taking some time to journal and think about all this stuff to really see, this is something I always suggest to people, and I do it myself, of course, is, really when you sit down and you reflect and you journal on things to see how can you get better? How could we improve now going into 2021 with all of these lessons? So if we didn't learn something from 2020, then shame on us, because I think there's been so much that we could really take from this year of chaos and help us get better, get stronger in the new year. So what I want to do today is chat with you about some of the lessons and some of my biggest takeaways from 2020. And hopefully some of this stuff resonates with you and helps you take the step forward going into 2021, because I know that it's going to be the best year for everybody, especially going through this crazy year. These last 12 months have really been pretty nuts. So let me take a sip of coffee before we get started. We got to get a little caffeinated going into these solo episodes here. But so I think one of the first lessons for me, just kind of going in the order of events here for this past year, the first thing for me started with Kobe. When Kobe Bryant died, I think it really rocked the entire world. When someone like that dies, I think it's really interesting for all of us, and that we feel that people like Kobe are invincible. And when they die and they have this, premature death, it really hits us in a way that's so hard to believe, because you feel like this person who's on top of the world and has given so much to the world and so much motivation and inspiration and lessons, and when someone like that dies, you almost feel like it's not real, like this wasn't supposed to happen. And of course, there were a lot of other people that died that day as well. But, obviously Kobe being the celebrity, and that's the person that that's the one that you really, you feel like you have some type of connection or relationship with, right? So it's not to downplay the deaths of anybody else who died that day, of course not. But when you're thinking about someone like that, you realize that truly anything could happen to anyone at any time. So I think most of us go through this life thinking like that can't happen to me, or that won't happen to this person or that person. But this was a real wake-up call that, shit, this could happen to anyone. Anyone. No one is exempt. No one is invincible. So what does that mean? Well, I think in a world full of distractions, where people are staring at their cell phones and every little buzzer that's going off every 5 minutes, you're sitting around the dinner table and, people are just glued to their phone, not paying attention. That shit has to stop. I think you really need to appreciate the moments that you have with people that are right in front of you, face to face, skin to skin, looking at you in the eye. Those moments are the ones you're going to appreciate most. Not about the text messages coming in, or about who the fuck liked your photo on Instagram, or who's DMing you or emailing you. None of that shit really matters. But the people that are sitting across from you, those moments that you have with your friends, your family, and people that you love are the ones that are really going to make a difference in your life. And you never know when those moments are going to be taken away from you. So be fully present. Going into 2021, be fully present. Appreciate those moments that you have with those people. Spend more time around the people that really matter to you. Those people that you really love and they really love you too. Because if you're spending your time around the wrong people, then you're not going to appreciate those moments either. So spend more time with the people that you really love and that you really care about. And when you're with them, be there, be present. Take your fucking phone, put it on airplane mode, and pay attention to what the person across from you has to say. Look them in the eye and speak to them. Hear them, listen to them, laugh with them, joke with them. Because you never know when the last time is going to be. You really don't. Maybe that's cliche. Maybe you've heard that before. We all have. But we all kind of overlook that. Like, yeah, not me, whatever. But then something like that happens. Kobe happens. And you're like, damn, that could be me. That could be somebody that I love. It could be somebody that I care about. And we take too much shit for granted. Let's not do that going into this year. Because there was a lot of loss this year. All right, Kobe's just one. There was a lot of loss. And we don't know the last time that we're going to have to spend with people. So appreciate those moments. Be fully present. Be engaged. And show people that you really give a shit. Don't be rude and look at your phone when you're sitting across from somebody. So after Kobe happened, then COVID-19 happened. We got into the pandemic here. So this was an interesting one. I think there's a lot to talk about here. So, where do we begin with the pandemic? Right? There's so much. Well, why don't we start with you business owners out there, my fellow business owners listening to the show today, and even if you're not a business owner, actually, even if you are an employee, I think this is also an important point for you. I think one of the biggest things that the pandemic taught me is that you have to have multiple streams of income. You have to have those multiple streams of revenue if you're going to survive. Because a lot of people lost their jobs and lost their businesses, and it had nothing to do with them. The government has locked us down, forced people out of our businesses, shut down the economy, shut down the world. You may have gotten laid off or lost your job, or maybe your company ended up closing. You know, they had to close their doors. Now you no longer have a job. So what do we do to prepare for something like this in the future? And let's hope nothing like this ever happens again in our lifetime, at least. But if it does, how can we be prepared for it? Well, multiple streams of revenue. So I think that, for me, having two businesses and, owning TTS, my brick and mortar gym, and then having my online nutrition coaching programs, for me, that really helped out significantly, especially in the early days of the pandemic. Fortunately, even for my business, we were able to pivot. Now, we had a loss, of course, but we were still able to maintain even towards the end when we weren't able to open our doors yet. So by the end of May, we were able to maintain still about 60 to 65% of our memberships. Now, of course, we lost a lot of the growth that we'd have in those months. We lost a large portion of our revenue during those months, but we were still able to maintain that, which I am very proud of because I feel that we made the pivot that we needed to make. And going into virtual online training through Zoom. That kept our members happy. We were engaged. It gave us some sanity to be able to work and coach our members and to be there for them and to give back and give them more. So we were able to do that, but then also for me personally, making up some of that revenue that was lost through my online nutrition coaching programs. So going into this year, I know that I'm going to be working on more, have some more ideas that we can't talk about today, but definitely have some more ideas for more streams of revenue. But I think it's important for all of us, whether you own a business or not, but especially you business owners, because, hey, what if this happens again? What if they close our doors again? What's the hit going to look like this time? How long could it go? What if this shit gets worse? All of that stuff is out of our control. You can't sit here and worry about it, but you got to control what you can control. So what else can you do? Can you start a little side hustle where if shit hits the fan, at least you have some income? You know, what can you do? What additional services can you offer? Could you start something online? It doesn't have to be huge. It could be small, right? You don't need to make $100,000 a month. Maybe you bring in $5,000 a month. Maybe you bring in $2,000 or $3,000 a month. From a side hustle, you know, supporting your income, I think that's a great place to start. Of course, you'd have to put in the work and you have to build it, just like anything else. But hey, if you want that and you don't want to complain and cry when the zombie apocalypse hits, then get your shit together. Let's get this moving, right? Get these things started. Start that project. What are you waiting for? Right? I think that's another lesson here is we always want to wait for the right time or the right moment. But hey, if you keep waiting and another pandemic hits, then what's going to happen? What's going to happen? It could be a lot worse. If it was bad this time, it could be worse next time. So prepare for it. Multiple streams of revenue. I think another huge lesson here in regard to the pandemic is that human connection is vital for our happiness. You know, we get a lot of people that are getting locked indoors and isolating themselves. And what have we seen? Well, we know that depression has gone up significantly since the shutdowns. We know that domestic violence has gone up. We know that child abuse has gone up. We know that alcoholism and drug use has gone up significantly. Overdoses have gone up. So what does that tell us? Well, it definitely tells us that isolation is not the answer. But it also tells us that connecting with other human beings is so vital for us and our happiness and our well-being. We operate well and we are most happy when we are in tribes working towards a common goal, working towards something that means something to the tribe. Your tribe might be your family, your friends, your coworkers. It might be your buddies at your jiu-jitsu school or in your gym. But working together to achieve something and human connection, having conversations, like I talked about earlier, looking at someone in the face and having a conversation with them, talking about things that really matter to you guys, laughing, having fun, enjoying those moments. Those are things that are vital for our overall happiness and who we are as human beings. So going into 2021, whether you want to keep a mask on or have a vaccine or whatever the case is, I think the important thing is to be around people. Be around people that you love and that you care about and that you want to be around and have their support and support them right back. Because if we don't want these numbers of depression and alcoholism and all these other things to keep going up, then we need people in our lives. We need good people around us, right next to us, right here, giving each other hugs and handshakes, bro hugs, of course, and supporting each other. It is essential for our happiness. Now, I think another thing that this pandemic has revealed is that the real pandemic is in regard to the diets and the lifestyles of our society. You know, you get people that are talking about masks, social distancing, shutting down the economy, locking yourself in your basement, but no one is talking about getting 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep. No one is talking about finding ways to manage stress better. No one is talking about nutrition or training or daily movement or recovery and relaxation. No one's talking about these things. No one. Guys, these are the things that impact your immune system. If your immune system is weakened, then guess what? If you contract this virus, then you have a greater chance at getting really sick or worse, dying from it. Now, I'm not one of those guys that has all these statistics and knows them off the top of my head. But I know that a large portion of the people who get really sick or have passed away from the coronavirus, COVID-19, have had underlying health issues. They've either had obesity, diabetes, heart disease, or some other type of health condition. Now, I'm not saying everyone. I'm saying a large portion of these numbers. So, what is the real issue? Is it COVID? Or is it poor diets, poor lifestyles, a lack of exercise, and a ton of stress, and poor sleep? Those are the things that you can control. We can't control what actually happens with this. And if we're just crossing our fingers, hoping a vaccine works, or hoping that masks can save our lives, or we have to just stay away from the outdoors and lock ourselves in a basement, that is insanity. In order for us to get through this, it starts with us. The shit that you hear from the media and the politicians, none of them, no one is talking about your health and what you actually can do. Locking yourself indoors and being kept inside and not exposing yourself to sunlight drastically that's going to impact the level of vitamin D in your body. We also know that the people who have been dying from COVID-19, a large portion of them have had low levels of vitamin D. Is anyone talking about getting sunlight? Is anyone talking about supplementing with a vitamin D3 supplement? Outside of the health and fitness industry, there's not many people talking about it. So the whole point here is we have a bigger problem. COVID just exposed the problem. Yeah, it's a problem, but COVID exposed the real underlying problem here, the root cause. And that is we are sick as a nation. Our society is so unhealthy that this virus has impacted so many lives that may be or may have been prevented if we were to exercise and to focus on our health and our fitness. You know, people who eat poorly, get a lack of sleep, don't exercise, there's a lot of issues there. There are a lot of issues that are created by those choices and those lifestyle habits. When you throw a virus like this into the mix, of course, it's going to affect those people more than the people who are healthy and exercising and taking care of themselves. So where are you when you're going into 2021? Okay, and listen, there's no weird political agenda here, okay? Because it's weird how a lot of people kind of turn it into that. No, I don't give a shit about politics. I don't give 1/8 of a shit about politics. What I care about is helping people stay healthy, get strong, and become the best version of themselves. And if you're going to become the best version of you in 2021, I'm not saying to be reckless, but I'm telling you that there are boxes that you have to check if you're really concerned about this virus. Well, are you going to get your sleep in check, or are you going to watch the news until 2 o'clock in the morning and just kind of pollute your mind with the garbage that they're spewing out there? Are you going to manage your stress levels, or are you going to be scrolling through social media, arguing with people, engaging in arguments, reading comments, and all this other bullshit that does nothing positive for your life? Are you going to start training, or are you going to keep sitting on the couch and watching TV? Are you going to get your diet in check, or are you going to keep eating Cheetos? And everybody's complaining, I gained 20 pounds or COVID or 25 pounds. If you're concerned with your health and you're concerned about the virus, then that's the worst thing that you can do is eat shit food and gain 20 pounds of body fat. That's irresponsible. So if you're really concerned about this, get that in check. Get your diet in check. Start eating well. Fruits, vegetables. Eat well. Get your exercise. Daily steps. Get outside. Even if it's cold out where you live, get outside and go for a good, fast-paced walk every day. Just do that. You don't have to be around anyone. Get out there and go for a walk. But those are the things that are really going to keep you safe. Those are the things that are going to protect you. Those are the things that are going to keep you healthy. And those are the things that are going to keep your mental well-being up to par and keep you in a positive, vibrant spirit, rather than being afraid and sick and locked in a dark room. That is the worst thing that you can do for yourself. So, what is the real pandemic here? Well, in my opinion, you know what my opinion is. Now, the funny thing is that the politicians and the media, they might not be out for your best interest. They might not be out to actually help us, Maybe, just maybe, they are out there to solely push their agenda. So regardless of what side you're on, if you're on a side, maybe the shit that they are spewing into your mind is for a vote, and not because they really give a shit about you or me or anyone else. It's just something to think about. I need a sip of coffee here. So, craziness in 2020. So after COVID hit, as you know, then we had this horrific case of police brutality and the George Floyd murder, which, you know, most police officers will say it's horrible. Most people will say that that was horrible, and I think we all know that. And I don't want to get too deep into all the other things that kind of came along with it. I'll just say this. There was a lot of good and there was a lot of bad that came away after that happened, right? A lot of the bad includes rioting, right? There was a lot of bad things going on within those riots, right? And it really, through social media and through the media, again, really divided our nation and divided people. And people were arguing over things that it's like, hey, what is this really about here? You know, and that was sad for me to see. And I think the lesson for me that came out of that is that we are stronger together, period. Always. We are stronger together. No matter your race, your gender, whatever, your sexual preference, none of that shit matters. We are stronger together as human beings, as people. So fucking love one another. Support one another. What is, all this craziness that went on after that? Man, we have to stand up, band together, because we're always stronger that way. We got to help each other. And I really think it comes down, again, I hate to keep sounding like this weird conspiracy theorist, like the media, but it's true. The media, I think, does their best to divide us, again, perhaps because of a political agenda. But if we could silence social media, if we could silence the mainstream media, and we could just focus on people, just focus on each other, then I think we're going to be a lot stronger. And I think we're going to be a lot better because of that. And I think we're going to be better people because of that. And if we have better people, we'll have a better society, a stronger society. Damn. Crazy year. 2020. You know, and after all that stuff, I think the positive, though, is that most people did come together. Regardless of the noise on social media and what you see out there, I think the majority of people, because I think that's a smaller percentage of people that just makes a lot of noise. I think the majority of us supported each other, supported and stood up for what's right, and helped each other, showed people that we care about one another. I think that's what's most important, and that's what came out of that. And if there's a lesson going into 2021, it's just that. Hey, we're stronger together. Let's band together and not let anything or anyone get in between us as human beings, regardless of any other factors like race or gender or whatever. Because what really matters is people. So now, as this year moved on, and after, we had the elections and we had a lot of the arguments about politics, and this was really crazy. Like, for me, in my life, this was the craziest election that I've ever been a part of. I think it was just so polarizing because of, the people that are running, and because of, the pandemic, and because of the riots and the protests and all that stuff that were going on. I think this election was one of those that made us say, like, damn, I got to pay attention to this shit because I'm not someone who really pays attention, if I'm being completely honest. So this year more than ever, it could be because I'm getting older. It could be because all these things that were going on. But all this stuff was going on, which kind of heightened everybody's emotions and all that stuff. And I think it comes back to this, like, hey, focus on what's important, control what we can, right? Another thing for 2020 is, I have to bring this up, of course, the death of my father. This was obviously a tough one for me. And, for those of you that are, maybe this is your first time listening to the show, my father passed away about a month ago. And I think the thing here, the biggest lesson is that you cannot control people. You can't control the choices that they make, and you can't control who they are. I love my father very much, but he's been sick for a long time, and a lot of my father's sickness was self-induced. It goes back to what I was talking about earlier. My father had diabetes for a long time, refused to do a thing about it. My father caused some turmoil in his own personal life. I never wanted to apologize, never wanted to have those conversations with people who he may have hurt, not physically, but emotionally. When he started falling and not able to walk on his own, which led to him being bedridden, I have to say it wasn't a positive, inspiring moment in him with wanting to recover or anything like that. It was more of pointing the finger at whose fault it was that he was in the position that he was in, since 2013. He got to the point where, several surgeries, a lot of trips to the hospital because of infections. Again, those infections could have been avoided. In and out of the hospital. And then to the point where over the last few years, his legs, his feet were becoming extremely discolored. And it was very clear that this was a problem due to the diabetes, but he decided not to do a thing about it. He wanted to keep a blanket over his legs. He did not leave the bed for 7 years. Although he was in excruciating pain, if you were so much to touch a toe, he would scream in agonizing pain. We couldn't do a thing about it. We tried relentlessly to get him to go to the hospital to figure this out, right? This went on for years. And then what happened? It got to the point where his legs became gangrenous. The infection was so bad that he had hours to live. Hours. This is back in June. So he gets to the hospital, and they have to perform an emergency bilateral leg amputation at about 3 o'clock in the morning. The doctor said, and both legs above the knee, about 4 inches. The doctors told me that if he would have got there a few hours later, he would have never survived. And frankly, I was survived that someone in his condition was able to survive the surgery. So he was in the hospital. He was in rehab. You know, he was a resilient fuck. I got to say that. He was as resilient, as stubborn as an old Italian man from Newark, New Jersey can be. And if you're from New Jersey, you know the type of guy, right? And if you watch The Sopranos, you know the type of guy. So he was as resilient as they come, but then ran into another health issue, and we saw his arm looking really swollen. He decided not to do his rehab after some time at his stay in rehab, and after a few months, he was back home. Once he was back home, he was on dialysis 3 days a week, so he was going to dialysis 3 days a week, being transported, not doing any therapy. As far as I know, he was taking his medications, but I believe he stopped that too closer to the end. And then my last conversation with him was, an argument about how his arm was really swollen and how he needed to get to the hospital immediately, and he refused. And that was on a Thursday, and then Monday morning, he died. So, what is the lesson? Well, like I said, you can't convince people to do things. As much as you love them, as much as you want to help them. If you're a coach listening to this, you might have people that are your clients, and you want to help them so bad. But you can't force people to do anything. You could only guide. You could coach. You could try to use some tactics to lead people in the right direction. But at the end of the day, you can only do so much. You could do everything that you know as a coach is the right thing to do. But if people don't want to do it themselves, or aren't willing to do it, or maybe not capable of doing it yet, then you're only going to get so far. And if you have someone in your family that you love and that you care about, and that you're trying to help them, I want you to remember that too. Because you're only going to be able to do so much, man. You're not going to be able to change their ways or change their mind. It doesn't mean you give up on them, but it also doesn't mean that you live your life just begging and pleading and trying to convince them to do the things that you know are right. I have to say that if the last 7 years when my father got sick until the day he passed, we've had the best relationship that him and I have ever had, because I decided, you know what? I'm only going to push the issue about his health and about the things that he should or should not do to a certain extent. I'm not going to push it anymore. I'm going to be there to support him. We're going to talk about the Giants and the Yankees and whatever was going on in the world, because he would get all fired up about this stuff. So hearing him, once in a while, he would like to talk about that. We talk about old movies. We talk about old trips to Wildwood and some memories that we had. But we wouldn't talk about the things that were really the things that we've always argued about. And because of that, we had a better relationship. I'm not going to say we never argued. I'm not going to say I never pushed it, because I'm not perfect. Because at times I would lose my shit and I'd say, what the fuck are you doing? Go get yourself help. This is bad. But that didn't do anything. I wasn't able to help him because he was not ready. So people are going to choose their path in this life. And we could influence and we could inspire and we could educate and we could lead from the front. We could lead by example, but that's only going to go so far. So you have to have your boundaries for people that you love, people that you care about, or maybe even for your clients. Because if you have clients that you're trying to help and you're on the phone with them 6 hours a day trying to convince them, about things that they should or shouldn't do, then you're doing a disservice not only to yourself, but hey, how about your other clients? How about the other people that you could be impacting? Instead of spending your time on this one person, you could be influencing the masses in a positive way. And maybe those are people that actually want to hear your message. That's what I've learned. You guys are listening to this show because you want to hear what I have to say. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening. My father didn't want to hear what I had to say. So, now that he's passed, I miss him. I'll miss him forever. I have a lot of memories, but he's gone. And I think the important thing here is everything else that I just mentioned. Hey, like I said earlier, this life is short. We never know when the last moment is going to be. That Thursday night, I had no idea that was going to be the last moment, the last conversation I was going to have with my dad. I can't say that I was completely shocked when I heard the news that he passed. But hey, I didn't know it was going to be the last. Just like, when he had his legs removed. That could have been the last. I didn't know. I didn't know, but it wasn't, right? So just like this time, he may have pulled through. So I didn't know. But the thing is, none of us ever know. We never know the last moment we're going to have with someone. So fucking appreciate it. Appreciate every second of it. Enjoy it. Laugh. Don't fucking argue. What's the point? What's the point of arguing? I know it's so much easier said than done because, hey, I'm not Buddha, and I know you aren't either, right? So I can't just, cross my legs and say, like, it's all good and meditate. Like, no, you got to feel pain every once in a while. We all have our emotions, but, hey, we got to handle our shit, too. We got to handle our emotions and don't get caught up or sucked into the conversations that just aren't going to go anyplace. Enjoy your time instead. I think the important point there, right? Another lesson with that is you control what you can and you cope with what you can't, right? As far as the loss of business and the shutdowns and all that stuff, it's like you got to cope with that stuff because you can't control what the government decides to do or all this other stuff that goes on in the world, right? You can't control that shit. So by losing business because of the government shutdowns and all that stuff, that's out of my control. But hey, what could I control? What could I control? What could I? The additional streams of revenue that I talked about earlier, serving my members, creating better systems, trying my best to figure out, hey, if the shit hits the fan again, what is our course of action? What do we do? Okay? Those are the things you can control. And you know what else you can control? Your sleep, your stress management, your nutrition, your training, your daily movement, your ability, your recovery ability, getting massages, relaxation. You can control the way you treat your spouse or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whoever. You can control the words that come out of your mouth. You can control the thoughts that occupy your mind. You have control over the time that you wake up and the time that you go to bed. You have control over the shit that you consume. Are you watching hours of Netflix? Are you watching bullshit, fear-mongering news? Or are you reading? Are you journaling? Are you getting better? Are you working on you? Are you training? Are you connecting with people who you really care about? Are you connecting with people who could help you? Are you investing in yourself, in coaching, in mentorship? Are you going to go to events in 2021, sorry. If there are events. Hey, if there's not events in person, could you attend a virtual summit or a virtual event? What can you do to get better this year? Because that is what you can control. The other stuff, guys, it's just fucking noise. It's just noise. So focus on what you can, and let's get better this year. Let's truly improve. You know, for me, I know that focusing on myself, working on, hey, what do I need to do to make my relationship better? What can I do to get better as a coach? What books do I need to read? What courses do I need to take? What business skills do I need to develop this year? What needs to get better? How can I make this podcast better? How can I get better with public speaking? What about my writing skills or my relationship with my mom? Those are the things that I could really work on this year. And then I have other personal things like, hey, I want to get better at jiu-jitsu. What is that going to look like for me? Do I have to up my training? Do I have to watch some more, maybe a video or two a week on a certain move or a certain drill? You know, have those personal goals for yourself physically too, because that's going to make all the difference. That's going to give you that drive. And this is about getting better as a whole. You know, back to what I was talking about with my father, you know, after my father passed, a week later, my brother relapsed after being clean for about a year. I ended up in the hospital. I was with him from 9 p.m. to about 6 a.m. in the emergency room. Didn't really get anywhere with that and being with him. And now he's in a dark place, and I've been trying my best to help him. But again, people need to want to help themselves. So if they don't have that drive to do this stuff that I'm talking about, to work on themselves, there's only so much you can do. And hey, maybe someone that you love has been trying to help you. Maybe it's not to the extreme of my father, or maybe it's not to the extreme of my brother, but maybe it's, hey, maybe the spouse is crying out to you, but you haven't been hearing her. Maybe your kids have been asking for more attention, but you've been focused on work too much. Maybe you're letting your fitness slip. Maybe you got a little extra junk in the trunk right now, getting a little bit puffy. Maybe your employees or your employer is asking for something, but you're ignoring it. Maybe there are people that are right now trying to help you, but you've been resistant to it. Have you opened up your mind to hear them, to really hear what they're saying and what they're asking for you? And try to figure out, hey, is it my ego that's preventing me from listening? And if so, what kind of point do they have? Okay, they're pointing something out. Maybe I need to get better. Maybe I need to improve. And if you adopt that mindset, there is no way that you cannot improve and get better and have the best year of your fucking life in 2021. Guys, I want to thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I want to thank you so much for your support and listening to each episode that I put out there this year in 2020. I have to say, it really means the world to me that you give a shit about what I have to say enough to listen to me up here on this microphone for an hour every week. It means the world to me. And I want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you. And I'm going to do my best to make this show even better in 2021, to give you more direction, more coaching, more advice, more everything, and not just more, but better. I'm going to work my ass off to improve this show in 2021, and you're going to see that firsthand. And I wish you nothing but a very happy and healthy and prosperous new year. And the only thing that is going to make 2021 a better year than 2020 is you. So get out there and do the fucking work and have a happy new year. I'll see you in 2021. Peace.